Congratulations. You have made a very good decision to do the artist's way. I did it a year ago. It's been a year now. And I can tell you now, it's been the most rewarding thing I've done in a long time. So I want to share with you some tips and tricks and hacks to make sure that you get the most out of doing the artist's way. I want to make sure that you simplify it as much as you can for yourself and just ensure that you successfully complete it, which is the most important part. The first tip I have for you is to make a honest commitment to yourself. When you commit to something, you give yourself a better chance at the end of the day of really completing it and making the best out of it. You are going to be asked to sign a sort of like a contract in the beginning of the book. Julia Cameron has a little page that has a contract that you sign, but it's really important that you make an honest commitment with yourself. This is something that you are ultimately doing for yourself. And so in order to not let yourself down, it's important to really make that commitment. Make a commitment as if you are making it with a friend, like you are telling a friend, like, I'm going to show up for you. This is how you need to show up for yourself. So if you need to wear a ring or something to remind yourself of this, do it. And then once you are in the journey, down the road of the journey, how many weeks ever you are in, and you feel like your commitment is wavering slightly, because this is very normal, then renew your commitment to yourself, like renewing wedding vows, that sort of thing. Yes, don't underestimate this. I know it sounds silly, but it really is important, and you will give yourself statistically a much better chance of actually completing this and actually getting the benefit from what this course has to offer. The second tip I want to give you is to really think about establishing a new routine for yourself. Think about where all of these activities are going to fit into your normal day-to-day life. Because you are essentially taking on something completely new. You are introducing completely new tasks and activities into your life. You will have to make a plan for where they will fit in, and decide what you're going to ultimately sacrifice. If your life is already sort of really full, then where will this fit in? What will you forego in order to fit it in? For the most part, the artist's way should not really interfere too much in your day-to-day life. It is not a major time eater. It doesn't really take up that much time. So to break it down for you a little bit, 1 to 2 hours per week will be to read the corresponding chapter. So each week, because the course is 12 weeks long, you will have a chapter for each week. There will be 12 chapters. So for each chapter, and it's not a long chapter, 1 to 2 hours, and you should be able to do it in 1 or 2 days. But if you read fast, you could read it in half an hour. But that's sort of like what you're looking at in terms of just getting the reading part done. Then the writing the morning pages, I think this is the part where people feel like this is the biggest chunk of time that they have to set aside. And I think it's the biggest thing in terms of like a new activity that you have to integrate into your everyday life. So this is very important to understand that this morning pages, this writing thing every morning, you will have to get used to it. You're not going to be used to it. You're going to have to create sort of like a habit around it. So in order to make that simple, I'm going to give you some tips about that. But the morning pages activity itself should probably take you, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour. It takes me a little bit longer because I have a 4-year-old and I didn't get up earlier, which I probably should have done to get it done. And that would have meant that I had less distractions. But I didn't do that. So my writing of my morning pages probably took me much longer. But for you, it probably, if you don't have a child and you're going to get up, or you're going to get up early in the morning and do it when no one is disturbing you, I'm sure you could get it done in 30 minutes to an hour. But you don't really want to be too rushed. So give yourself an hour, hour and a half, I would say. Get up earlier. Take my word on that. Then the tasks. So you have these tasks every week that are attached to each of the chapters. These tasks, they look like there's a lot of them, and you're not necessarily supposed to or instructed to really hit all of them and tick all of them off. But you are sort of encouraged to do as many of them as you possibly can, and especially the ones that you feel a very strong hell no to, or a very immediate, "Oh, yes, I want to do that." Focus on those tasks. But for the most part, you should really only spend about 2 hours, 3 hours, and that is across the entire week. And then lastly, your artist date. Your artist date is something you're only doing once a week, and it should take you minimum 2 hours. But you can stretch that out as long as you like, because it's usually going to be something that you do in your off time anyway. So I'm going to share with you what I did, because I feel like when you establish a little bit of a routine and more of a rhythm around it, you are more likely to succeed, because it's hard to do new things that you've never done before. It can feel very overwhelming, and you just want to make sure that you set yourself up for success. So I started on a Sunday by reading the chapter that I needed to read for that week. The reason I chose a Sunday is because I could read the chapter in a leisurely fashion. I didn't have to squeeze it in or, whatever. And I felt like I could absorb, I could just absorb better what I was reading, and I could do it at my own pace and sort of throughout the day, how I saw fit. And that really worked for me. So every Sunday I would read the entire chapter. I wouldn't read little pieces by pieces. And I liked reading it before I started doing the tasks, because there's so much in each of those chapters that will give you real food for thought. And you want to go into the week with those things in the back of your mind. And I also liked highlighting a lot of the stuff. And so it was nice to do it on a Sunday when you were already in a sort of like a relaxed mood. So then on a Monday, I would be ready to jump into the tasks. And these I would do sporadically throughout the week. I would not have scheduled time sort of in my schedule specifically for tasks. I would just do it throughout the week whenever I had a moment. If I was waiting somewhere, or if I was, just sitting around watching my kid play or something like that. I didn't have a formal time where I set aside time to do the tasks. I just sort of did them throughout the day. Sometimes I would even do them at night as a form of sort of journaling, which was quite fun. And sometimes I would, if I had some time after I did my morning pages, I would sometimes just add a couple of tasks here and there. Sometimes the tasks are things that literally take 2 seconds. Sometimes it's more of a like write a letter to your future self sort of thing. That's going to take a little bit more time. You might want to do that at night before you go to bed or something like that, when you are alone and undisturbed. But for the most part, doing it sporadically throughout the week is fine. And you can even read all the tasks beforehand and see, how you think you're going to fit it into your week. What I also did was, when I felt a little bit pushed for time that week and I felt like I couldn't get through all the tasks, and I just felt like whatever the topic was for that week, just didn't feel like it sank in properly, I would give myself an extra week to cover that again. So I don't know actually how many weeks I did the artist way. I think it was probably 15 weeks or something, but I mean, who's counting? Then the morning pages. Try to be very consistent with the morning pages. I try to really because I was trying to build a habit, I was trying to be very consistent with the morning pages. So I wrote them every single morning, even if I only had time to write a paragraph, I would still write them just to get into the habit of doing it. And that helped a lot, because that, even to this day, I still write my morning pages, and it's just so second nature to me now. It's just, I wake up, I make coffee, I write morning pages. That's now how it goes. Yes, Saturday, I would always make my artist date day. It simplified it for me. It prevented me from putting it off and saying, oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and oh, I'm going to do it the day after that, and then something happens and I've got to do something. And then it made Saturday is artist day today. And eventually I even turned my whole weekend into an artist date weekend, which was also nice. And then Sunday again, back to just reading the chapter, but also that would be my check-in day. So at the end of every week, you have to do a little bit of a check-in. There's some questions that you have to answer. And you're just basically saying how it went, what you struggled with, all of that sort of stuff. And I found that that was best done then on the Sunday, when I was doing a lot of reflecting, as it was. Then the third tip that I want to give you is to, instead of writing the check-ins, like I said, there are some questions in the book that ask you how you did that week, how you think you can improve, and whatever. But in retrospect, I didn't do this, but in retrospect, I actually wish I did a video diary, especially for the check-ins. I think that would have been easier to do, since we're sort of lazy to write things, and sometimes it's just easier to talk about how you feel and what you've been going through. It's just easier, and I think a video would have captured my actual emotions about that week better. I mean, I could have probably judged from, or gauged from, the video better where I was. I think it would have been fun to have a record of it somehow, because I didn't do it, like I said. I had intentions of doing it, but I never ended up doing it. But now in retrospect, I can see how that could have been very helpful, because you would be able to easily see your own progression, especially judging by your state of mind, which you could only see really in a video. The fourth thing is knowing what to expect. Now, in the beginning of the book, there's a whole chapter basically written entitled What You Can Expect. I think when I read it, I didn't realize the importance of what I was reading, obviously, because I had not done the artist way at that stage. But now looking back, when I reread the book and I read that page again, I was like, okay, I wish I had held on to that information, because it would have been really helpful. She explains basically this emotional roller coaster that you're going to go on. Don't be scared, but it's an emotional sort of cycle that most people go through when they recover their creativity, which is what the course is about. And she says that this cycle is very trackable, basically, and that she's seen it with most people that have gone through it. Everybody has, they go through this exact cycle, but they have various degrees of how pronounced the emotion is, I would say. But there are these phases, and I think if I had put this up somewhere for myself, and I would have known and relished more, or leaned into those emotions a little bit more than I had. So for those of you that want to know, the first step, the first cycle that you go through when you just start, is sort of what she calls this giddiness versus defiance. And basically, you are going to be either super excited about taking on this new challenge. Some people's first reaction when looking forward to something like this is sort of like giddiness, sort of happiness, but like super excited. But some people have this like a defiant sort of attitude towards it. Oh, this isn't going to work. It's just for like idiots who want to waste their time. That sort of defines. That's also a natural reaction, believe it or not. It's a natural reaction. The second phase, and I think this is sort of here by the week 2 or 3, I think. She doesn't give you the weeks, I'm just guessing, is where she says you're going to go through like explosive anger. Now, I didn't really go through explosive anger, but then again, I don't really ever feel that angry. So anger is not an emotion that I often feel, although that's not super healthy, but I mean, more on that later. So I didn't really have that explosive anger situation, but I think what it stems from is the fact that you become illuminated to the fact that you've been shortchanged basically in your life by various things that have happened in the past. And that anger is a healthy, normal part of moving through the emotions. So don't be shocked when it happens. It's a good sign. It means that you are on track. Third fun stage is grief. How lovely. I remember this. I'm more acquainted with grief than I am with anger. I remember a lot of crying. Yeah. But it was good crying. It's like you didn't really know why you were crying, or I didn't know why I was crying, but I had this deep sadness. Now I know in retrospect that I was really grieving my old self and all of that story. But knowing, if I had known that this was to be expected, and if I was more in tune with that, I think I would have just sort of leaned into it a little bit more, like, be like, this is good crying, like this is fun crying, this is purposeful crying. The fourth one is a stage that she says, she explains it as peaks and valleys. So you're going to go through these waves of hopefulness and resistance, hopefulness and resistance. And a lot of people abandon right after this. This is where they feel like it's just a strong urge to abandon the entire project. But once you stick to it, and so the next level after strong abandonment, strong urge to abandon, is to recommit. And when you recommit, that is when you experience a major ego, what does she call it? Ego surrender, a major ego surrender. And then basically all that is left is welcoming your new self. And it really is amazing. It's very akin to what I would call, or not what I would call, but what it reminds me a lot of the dark night of the soul type of stuff. It's basically the same thing. It is this surrender of the ego. But once again, know what to expect. That's all I'm saying. Know what to expect. Then it won't seem so scary and weird to you. Then you'll know that you are on track, and you will just understand where you're coming from better. So I think what I also want to say with know what to expect. So know what to expect, and also trust the process. Because a lot of what you will be asked to do will seem silly to you, or it just won't seem logical to you, or you will think, how can this be important? Like, I'm not going to waste my time. Like, this is nonsense. But really just trust the process. Go with it, do all the things. Everything has a purpose, and there's a reason for everything that she's asking you to do. So give yourself the best possible experience by really fully going for it, and not shortchanging yourself sort of by doubting it and by second guessing every single thing. It's going to be very emotionally draining. So trust the process and know what to expect. That's my fourth tip for you. Also, keep in mind that your subconscious is trying to keep you from changing, essentially. So it will come up with a lot of logical reasons why what you are being asked to do sounds silly and stupid and like a waste of your time, or like an insult to your intelligence, or you, whatever resistance you experience. Just keep in mind that your subconscious is trying to protect you, but it is not going to help you change and usher in a new person. It's just not going to do that. It's not on board with that agenda. The next important area where I think you should focus is morning pages. There's a lot of things that we can do with this activity that can make it automatic for you, make it a habit, simplify it, and help you leverage it. Because when you leverage an activity, you're getting more out of it. You're going to be writing these things anyway. Why not make the most out of it and get more out of it than just writing it and leaving it at that? So the core of finding your creativity, the core activity that helps you do that is morning pages. So do not underestimate the power of this activity, this very simple activity. But make it compulsory for yourself. Make it a no-brainer. You can't get out of it. It's there. It's like death and taxes. Make friends with it. Get acquainted. Settle in. Okay? Because it's there for the long haul. Like I said, I do it to this day. Sometimes I think, why am I doing this? And then other times I think, this is the most amazing habit I've ever formed. Really. So make it first compulsory. Carve out that quiet moment in your day. Really decide when that is. Let it be like an hour and a half so that you're not pressurized and that you don't feel, yes, that you can just relax. It's really like me. Think about it as me time. But get up earlier if you have to. I think it will be worth it. I'm starting to do it now, and I actually can't believe that I didn't do it before because, God, who was I kidding? So make it nice for yourself too. Set up a nice spot where you can sit and be comfortable. Have everything there that you like, and make it a nice, comfortable moment. It's not always the most pleasant thing for a lot of people to write, especially since you're writing longhand and it's 3 pages. I'm not saying that this is arduous or anything, but just make it extra nice for yourself. It doesn't hurt. I even sometimes put nature sounds or something in my earpods. And that's sometimes nice if there are little people around that distract you. Not even little people, big people too. My husband has a wonderful habit of just starting a massive conversation with me while I'm like mid-morning paging it. I don't know why. It just probably thinks I'm sitting there. She might as well, her ears are unoccupied. She might as well listen to what I have to say. But it is very distracting, and you don't always feel like saying, excuse me, I'm busy, because it's like, what are you really busy with? But you should actually do that. And you should have just a time for yourself to do it and have a nice place to do it and be quiet and put earpods in if you have a roommate or you have a talkative husband or a talkative child or a busy, noisy street, whatever. Just cut down on the distraction. Put nature sounds in, sound bath sounds, whatever floats your boat. The next thing I would say in terms of morning pages is to start with a prompt. This is now to make it simple. To make it simple for yourself, start with a prompt. Sometimes when we are given a blank page, like carte blanche to do whatever we like, it's really hard to start. It's really difficult to know what to write. And since this is really just stream of consciousness writing, you could literally write anything. But I find it helpful to start with asking myself a question. Just how are you feeling? Where are you at today? I've recently also started doing this thing where I list things I want. That's fun, actually, because that just gets your juices flowing and you start writing about, where you're in your life at the moment. What do you want? What are you thinking about? What's bothering you? And that's essentially what morning pages are. So have something that you use as a prompt if you struggle to get started. And then the last thing, just to optimize your morning pages and to leverage them, really get the most out of them, is I like to use a highlighter, to keep a highlighter with me as I'm writing. And when I'm writing things that I would like to later capture digitally or in my second brain or whatever, then I would highlight that piece, because it's very hard to go back and find those important nuggets that you've written down. Okay, so once I've highlighted the pieces that I want to remember, capture in my second brain, they are either insights or things that I want to remember, things I want to do one day. I would then take just my phone and use Google Lens to capture it digitally, but it's just easier to go back and just look at where you highlighted things. Otherwise, it's very difficult to start rereading everything. There's a dog that I've just entered and he's breathing heavily. He's panting and he's tired. Hello? You can watch my video that I did on how I am building a second brain if you are unfamiliar with the concept, or if it sounds interesting to you, then I will link it below. Okay, tip number 7. Plan and schedule your artist dates. This sounds like a no-brainer, but you won't believe how easy it is for most of us to defer doing things that are actually fun over prioritizing things that are more sort of work-based. A lot of people have a really hard time with the artist date, and I was no different. I thought that this would be the thing that I would love and I would do all the time, but strangely enough, I hardly ever did my artist dates. I went sometimes weeks without doing anything, and part of it was that I couldn't come up with stuff to do in the moment or on the day, or sorry. And so I realized in retrospect that these were essential appointments that I had ultimately with myself. They like dates with yourself. And what I have now is a list of activities, a sort of running list that I keep on my phone. And I categorize the activities under sort of indoor activities, outdoor activities, home-based activities, activities for when you really don't want to spend any money, activities that will cost money. I even have a category now for sort of extravagant activities that I would like to do, and maybe they are for a whole weekend or whatever. But it's fun to have, because when you then decide, okay, Saturday is my artist date, then you can look through your activities and choose something. It's hard to sometimes think what you want. I mean, I'm one of those people that if somebody asks me what I want for my birthday, I just literally go blank. I'm like, I don't know what I want. Who am I? Money? I don't know. So yes, you don't actually have to have a lot of activities even. I mean, you just list 12 to 24, because you only need 12. You're going to have 12 artist dates while you are doing the artist way. But give yourself some more options maybe. I mean, sometimes it's raining and you can't go to the park. Sometimes you are housebound. A lot of people had to, come up with ideas to do just at home during COVID, during all the lockdowns. I live on a farm, and so most of the time I am just at home, and it is not necessarily, I can't necessarily drive all the way to somewhere to go and do something. And so I have to come up with a lot of fun things to do at home, and usually when my child goes to bed. But figure something out for yourself. Figure out what works for you, but have that plan hand ready, filled with things that you really like. And it's nice to add it as you think of things, because you might think of something when you're not making a list, and just keep adding it to your list. The 8th tip I have is to really create a supportive environment for yourself during this time. And that includes supportive people. Have a list of people that you know always have your back and that are really supporting and supportive of you. And create a supportive environment for yourself. Think about this time that you are doing this course as sort of like an incubation time. You're going to probably feel a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more fragile than you usually would. A supportive environment, I would just say, think about things to boost your self-care. And if you really are around people that you find toxic, if there's no way to get away from them, I'm sorry. But find, at least somewhere where you can be and go and soothe yourself or make yourself feel better. Because you will need some extra comfort during this time. This plug for myself. I created a nice companion workbook when I first started doing the artist way. And I created it because it was very hard for me to read the tasks in the book and then go and write all the answers in another book, and then sort of looking at what I'd written and wondering what that was about. Why was I writing that? What was the prompt? And then I had to go back and look what was the actual question that led to that answer. It was very confusing and it just annoyed me. So I decided, but wouldn't it be better if I just had the question, then had space to write, and then had the next question and had space to write? And if it was divided up in weeks and I could get a little bit of an overview and then had the check-in at the same time. And so every week was its own little document, basically. And that's what I created, and I now actually have put it onto Etsy so that other people can also buy it. I don't know how much it actually is because it will always be different, but it's always around about $10, I would say, because I set the price in rand, and so as the rand and dollar fluctuate, finances, go and check it out. It will be helpful for you, and I think it will be worth how many dollars it is. It really saves you time. And I realized when I started using my own workbook that I was actually missing a lot of the questions and missing a lot of the tasks with all the back and forth going. I just sort of had skipped some of them. And the moment I started doing it on my worksheet, on my, workbook, I realized that I was just getting more out of it because I wasn't skipping questions and it wasn't so confusing, and I wasn't spending all my time going back and forth trying to, see what I was supposed to write again. So my last tip is just to extend the journaling and the morning pages, extend it to past the 12 weeks. Don't stop when the 12 weeks are over, because you are really just beginning. You are really just scratching the surface of what you are capable of. And when you've just recovered your creativity, you really just need momentum and you need to just carry on, because this is a lifelong thing. Being creative is a lifelong thing, and nurturing your creativity is a lifelong thing. So I just want to say really good luck. Good luck with this, and congratulations for making a really good decision. You're going to be so happy that you did this. And all the best. See you again. Ciao.